There's something that no one tells you about moving countries. Not the visas, not the accents, not even the culture shock. It's the habits that vanish so slowly that you don't clock them until they're already gone. The things you assume are just who you are, until one day, they're not. And I've even had people say to me lately, "You seem different now." Not in a bad way, just different. But when I actually sat down and traced it back, I realised that there's a very specific pattern. And once you see it, you can't unsee it, whether you've moved countries or not. So in this video today, I'm going to break down the 8 British habits that I lost once I moved to Australia and lived here for over a year and a half. And hey mate, welcome back. If you're new here, I'm Sam, a British actor documenting my journey of rebuilding life here in Australia. So number 1, queuing. Queuing has always been a very stereotypically British habit. Of course, many other cultures do it, but I think Brits take it a little too seriously sometimes. I used to feel genuinely calm in a queue, like, I know where my place is, I know what I'm doing, this is just standard way of living. And then I moved here, and it seems like some of the queue rules have kind of warped a little bit. Sometimes it feels like no one's quite sure who's next. Someone drifts off down the line and other people do a very sneaky jump into the queue when no one's looking. And you're left wondering if there's a rule update that you missed or if everything you've ever known is falling apart. But jokes aside, the realization hit me that Australia isn't anti-queue at all. There's so many people who absolutely love a queue here, but what I found is that the rules are a bit more loose. And it might sound like I'm being a bit pedantic, like I'm focusing a bit too hard on just a very boring aspect of life, queuing. But in the UK, if you ever visit us there, you'll see how seriously we take it. What I will say in Australia though, I feel like people give you more personal space in a queue here, which I really appreciate, because sometimes where I'm from in the UK, people just stand really close to you. And the thing with Aussie queues is that people aren't necessarily pushing in left, right and centre, but there's more of a trust built into the queue. More of a, not these are the rigid rules, more like, yeah my mate, if I jump in front of you, just let me know. There's more flexibility than that British, we will endure this brutal queue in silence together. It's like, hey mate, I mean, we're queuing here, this is boring as is, let's have a little chat. And I've had many a lovely chat with an Aussie in a queue, it's very nice. And if you also queue like your life depends on it, then make sure to hit that like button so I know. Giving yourself a bit of an operating system update takes a bit of time at first, but you get there. And that tiny discomfort made me notice this next one, because number 2, apologising for existing isn't something you do here. So here's a really weird one. If someone bumps into me, I will probably apologise. If someone bumps into me on the street, I'll probably apologise. If somebody is really in the way, not just of me, of other people, if I move past them, I will say sorry. Now, before you think I'm a nutter, no, this isn't just me. Lots of British people do this. And if you've ever visited the UK or you know a Brit, you've probably seen and heard this before. Don't know what it is. And it's not necessarily that we're, like, scared about other people, but it's more of an automatic politeness. If you're not overly polite in the UK, you're not doing enough. That's how it feels sometimes. Back home where I was born and raised, sorry is like punctuation. It's kind of an acknowledgement that I see that you're here. I'm not necessarily that sorry, but I'm trying to respect you and your space. But then I came to Australia and I realised that when people would bump into me or, try and move around me or something like that, no one would apologise. Not that they should have to at all, but it was kind of like a weight lifted off my shoulders, like, oh, maybe I don't need to overly apologise anymore. That's quite nice, because honestly, it gets exhausting sometimes. However, have I fully lost this habit? No, it would be a lie if I told you I did. I did catch myself doing it the other day, and I even out loud said to myself as that person had passed, I said, why have I apologised? But talking about something that I'm not sorry for is my new merch. Now, don't skip away yet, because I do just want to say, oh my gosh, I promise you, your merch won't come with this, but for some bizarre reason, there's all of these tiny, I don't know if you can see that, little red bugs running around the mug, and I don't know if it must be because of this plant. Oh my gosh, has a spider laid a load of little spider eggs on this plant? Anyway, what I wanted to say before I was so rudely interrupted by Australian wildlife is that I've got some new merch. Now, this is the first merch I've ever released on the channel. So if you want to be a part of the inside joke of the good vibes only, bad coffee never, and also this very funky she'll be alright mug, and you can get this design on some really gorgeous autumnal coloured crew necks. This is the first ever edition of merch on the channel. If you wanted to support the channel directly, then I will put the QR code there, or there's a link in the description below. I'm going to fix my plant, whatever's wrong with it. If any gardeners out there have any advice for me, please let me know. Right, back to it. Number 3, self-depreciation as a personality. I have lost this trait completely. In the UK, I used to roast myself constantly because if I didn't do it, some of my mates would do it for me. Now, I know this can be like lads having banter with each other, totally get that. But in the UK, I feel like sometimes we do take it a little bit too far. And so you constantly make up these self-depreciation jokes just because it kind of gives people a laugh, it shows people you're not too big for your boots, and you know, you kind of blend in with the crowd a bit more. It's a very British survival skill. You learn early on not to sincerely present your ambition that much to people, I would say. When I was, in the pub drinking at 18, 19 years old, I wouldn't really talk about my dreams and my goals with my mates at the pub because they'd probably rip into me for it. But contrary to popular belief, Aussies don't do this, I found. Now look, there is tall poppy syndrome here where, if you're a bit arrogant, people will try to pull you back down. But if you are sincerely and humbly talking about your ambition or something you're really excited about with your career or your goals or your relationships or something like that, I found Aussies to be really uplifting, really optimistic and positive about it, a bit more supportive, like, yeah mate, you can do that, go for it, go get it. Aussies don't do the tear yourself down to be liked by others sort of thing. And the first time I found myself not undercutting a win that I might not typically share in the UK, but I wanted to with my loved ones in Australia, it felt uncomfortable, but the response I received was very lovely. It felt a bit like I'd forgotten to put my armour on all my life, but taking off that self-deprecation armour was a big weight off my shoulders. And just a quick one, I noticed that over 87% of you who regularly watch these videos aren't yet subscribed. So if you are enjoying this, consider hitting that subscribe button. On to number 4, complaining as a form of bonding. Now this is something I will never lose when I go back to the UK or if I'm on the phone to friends and family from the UK, because a great way to bond with another Brit is by kind of having a bit of a whinge. Now, not in the typical sense like a whinging pom. We do it as a form of comedy. We do it not because we're actually that bogged down by the thing we're whinging about, more because we like the very dry humour of there being a problem with something and we can have a bit of a rant about it while throwing a bit of our comedy into it and having a laugh with our mate. Like, yeah mate, that is rubbish, that is stupid, I don't know why we do that. And there's an art to British complaining. It is how some friendships are formed in the UK. It's how I formed quite a few of my mates in the UK. But when I got here and I did want to share a moan with a few other people, and it was in a light-hearted British way, forming a bit of a bonding, it wasn't taken as well as I thought. It was taken a bit like, okay mate, well, don't know how to help you with that. But from this, it forced me to find a new form of connecting, which has opened my mind up to, different ways to talk to people, which has actually helped me. Am I the most charismatic fellow you might ever meet? Weird word, fellow. No, I'm not. I'm not the most charismatic person you'll ever meet, but making mates with other Aussies is now much easier. Now I know to leave the, light-hearted complaining back to my home country. But anyway, number 5, being indoors by default. This is the default in the UK, especially as our UK winters feel like they last for well over 6 months. A lot of us get seasonal affective disorder in the UK, even if we're taking a vitamin D supplement, because of the lack of sunshine. You've probably heard this before. Sometimes the sun in the winter doesn't come up until like 8 or 9 a.m. Then it goes down at 3 p.m. You get this tiny window of sunlight. And when I say sunlight, often it is quite grey and drizzly. That's not a stereotype. And I could kind of see this habit dying immediately, even before I got to Australia, knowing how gorgeous the weather can be in Brisbane from what Maddie has told me. So I moved here, and honestly, you will move here or you'll visit here and Australia will drag you outdoors, even if you're not ready for it. In the UK though, you have inside plans, inside pubs, get home after work, stay indoors, watch Netflix, play video games, drink tea. But Australia drags you outdoors, coffee walks with your mates, going for runs along the river or on the beach, mornings on the balcony or out on your veranda if you're lucky to have one. And almost like how smokers bond over having a cigarette, you find that the sunshine brings people closer together here because it gets everyone everyone outdoors into this gorgeous environment, vitamin D's flowing through your veins, don't know if it works like that, and you start building all these connections. I found that my days were a lot more joyful, work was a lot easier to get done, and yeah, just everything felt so much easier. And it made me think about other things that I've been, holding on to for far too long. Like number 6, overthinking social rules. Your British social life is basically a complex improv game, and you never know what's coming next. There's many invisible rules. Who offers to pay? Who texts you first? How many kisses do you put at the end of this text message? And Australia kind of rips all of that out of you. If someone likes you, they'll let you know. If someone doesn't like you, they'll let you know. Whereas in the UK, the slightest intonation from someone and how they're talking to you can make you walk away from that, overthinking if you have done something wrong. Now, British people are absolutely delightful, but we do have some very archaic social norms that we hold on to, and it's just time we let them go, because honestly, coming to Australia has been freeing and a little bit terrifying, because it's hard to lose these old habits. But because a lot of this British social etiquette doesn't exist here, you kind of don't know what to do at first, and then you realise, oh, I can just be myself. And it brings a new form of clarity. And that clarity started exposing something a little bit deeper about how I saw myself. Because habit number 7, tying identity to struggle. This one's a little bit tender. I used to wear struggle and hustle culture like a badge on my lapel. Cold cities, I was living in London for a while, very long winters, and the constant grind. It's something kind of hammered into you at school in the UK. Work real hard. Not just hard, real hard. And maybe, just maybe, you'll have a good life. And I'm not gonna lie, the majority of my UK life, once I was old enough, I was still studying at university, and then I went into like 9-to-5 jobs to try and support myself as an actor, and the rent was just brutal in London. I know London's extortionate as is though, and I turned to alcohol for quite a bit of that, which I deeply regret. And I was in one of the busiest cities in the world and felt completely alone. So moving to Australia, something that no one in my family tree has ever done, and picking somewhere that's a lot kinder to the body, it kind of challenged my identity. I know that sounds a bit wishy-washy, but I caught myself thinking, oh, maybe my work doesn't have to be as brutally hard as I've been making it out to be. But here's the kicker, taking off that hustle culture badge that I proudly wore in London, throwing it as far away into the sea as I could, I actually became a more productive person. Now I get so much more done in the day because I don't have this anxiety, I don't have this stress burdening me, which was actually slowing me down. Like, if I don't work hard enough, I'm not good enough. And I don't have that in Australia anymore, and I'm more productive as a result. But anyway, this leads into the last one, number 8, waiting for permission. Back home, I would tell myself I've got these big dreams that, one day I will get after it, but I was waiting. I was waiting to finish my A-levels so I could go to university. And then in London, I was waiting for the next acting job, to book an agent, for someone else, for something else, for the perfect timing. And then I moved to Australia, which is quite a freeing thing in itself. And there's this quiet, just have a go culture around. You see other people just having a go. You see other people like yourself putting work out there and doing the stuff you want to do, and you kind of realize, well, they're not waiting for anyone. Why am I? And without noticing, I stopped waiting. I started this YouTube channel, which I'm so grateful I have, because we've got this really lovely community that you're a part of, so thank you for being here. I got new headshots done and started looking for an agent. I signed up to this year's Gold Coast Marathon and went swimming in the sea and bought a coffee machine to teach myself how to make proper coffee and things like that. And I'm just giving everything a go, and it's actually really fun. And some of these things, they're not big things, they're not even that exciting to most people, but to me, this shift is massive, and I'm not done with it at all. This is an ongoing life project where I just want to keep having a go at more things, learning more things, and hopefully becoming the best version of myself I possibly can in the very little time that I have here. And that's the one habit that I never expected Australia would instill in me. But if you want to keep the adventure going, go watch this video here all about the 7 incredible things Australia gave me that the UK never did. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button to keep up to date. Thanks for watching to the end, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.